Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Sports Wave Network and Sports Corner with the Conn Man. Today with me, I have a very special guest. He goes by the name of Nick Correa. Nick, how are you doing, my brother?
Good. How you doing, Mikey?
I'm doing rather well, my friend. You know what? The reason why I wanted you on the show, Nick, was because first and foremost, I want to thank you for coming on my show. And second of all, I want you to know that you are appreciated. And before we go any further, I want to know, and I want the viewers to know exactly what got you involved. Let's go back, Nick. Let's go back to the day. Let's go back in the day. Let's go from the beginning. I know we're pressed for time, but let's go back to the beginning on how it all started. Talk about your childhood, or when you got to high school, things of that nature.
I grew up in New Bedford. My mom and dad. I was the only child, and the sports, like my uncle Eddie was the Coach Roderick was my uncle. So my mom's sister married Coach Roderick. So I remember at a very young age starting to go to the games, and it was amazing to me. Like I looked up to the guys, like the Fleas of the world and Lamont Ashley, and that was my generation. Right after Roger Lewis had finished, to be honest with you, was when I really started to go. But I remember going. I think it was Mike Herron's senior year, 1989, and I remember going to the Durfee game with my cousin Rebecca, my aunt, my grandmother, and the lady Mamie Gonzalez, who is one of the names of the gym. And it was January, and there was some snow coming down, nothing crazy, and there were two police officers waiting for us. And we parked the car, and they said, "We're waiting for you. We're going to walk you in. How are you, Mrs. Rodericks? How are you, Mrs. Poulis?" And they kind of walked us in the gym, and I had never seen anything like that because we hadn't played them yet that year. And that was like the first year. I think the year before I went to like the last two home games, something like that. And then the year after, I didn't miss a game. And walking in and seeing that crowd was just like, I was like, oh, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. Like Larry Bird and the Celtics don't have anything on these guys. Uh, and I was hooked. And I played the game a lot and I coached the game, but in high school, the teams were very good. I was average. I kind of just cut myself, and I was playing football for 4 years. Played 1 year in college, and Coach Rogers gave me an opportunity to coach at a young age, and I had it. I mean, I had Brian, Ryan, Wilson, Antoine. Who doesn't want to coach those guys? And it was a learning curve for me. They kind of coached me more at first, if I'm being honest, and I started doing pretty well. And I coached freshman basketball. I got into college, and as I was coaching, the addiction really came out. And when I got sober, I didn't think it was a great idea to like jump back into coaching college. And I always worked with guys in the gym. Brian Rudolph's freshman year, he was the first kid that I worked with consistently. And, at first, none of those guys wanted to do it. Brian, Ryan, Jerome DePina, he was another kid that was on that team. Marcel, JoJo Forts, love JoJo Forts, Nick Ponce, and they started wanting to work hard. And like Wilson, and we would go to the gym, and we would work out, and sometimes we would go to the Y. And Brian's senior year, he remained pretty consistent with it. During the fall, Wilson, Antoine, and Ryan were playing basketball, so Brian was always. I would pick him up after I coached freshman football at New Bedford High, and we would go to the Y and lift weights. And I just always loved it. That was like my little niche. And if I'm being honest, I'm better in the gym than I am on the basketball court. So I could probably give guys better pointers on how to lift and get explosive than I can on how to do something they do better than me. And I just stuck with it, and it's grown. And in my sobriety and in my recovery, I feel like God has linked me up with a lot of greats, and it's kind of been my niche, and it's something I'm very fortunate to do. I don't do it full time. I do it with just the guys that are like my family, and I've been blessed. Tyler Kolek got drafted last year, and Joe Son's
Mm-hmm.
probably going to get drafted, and I've had a lot of great players in between Brian and Tyler. And it's just something that I really, really enjoy doing, and it keeps me close to the game I love.
Now, let's go back a little bit. You talked about training Brian and a slew of guys you mentioned. What got you interested in training yourself?
I just like the gym. Like, I remember going to the gym in high school and I got great results. And it was just somewhere for me to like decompress, and I was pretty good at it. And when I got sober, I was doing it a little bit. My buddy Jay Caldas owned a CrossFit gym, and I knew
Okay.
how to like train. I didn't really understand as much. And then I had been doing it for like probably a couple years, and then Sharik gave me an opportunity to work at his gym, and I really learned a lot from him. And it was just something I really, really enjoyed doing. I was fascinated with the human body and the stuff that could happen from weightlifting and working out. Even from a young age in high school, I would always read magazines, on Arnold Schwarzenegger and guys, Ronnie Coleman, guys I would see in the gym. And I don't know, I liked wrestling as a kid. I liked that stature. And, I remember growing up seeing Brian Bosworth, Bo Jackson, the guys that
Mhm.
were Shaq, bigger in stature, I was interested in. So, and I saw what it did for Brian. It made a huge difference. And I said, man, every basketball player should be doing this.
Now, Nick, you know what? You're kind of being kind of humble because you seem like very nice and laid back. Tell the folks about your training style or your
I mean,
training regimen.
guys, we're there for a reason. We're going to work, And one thing people will say about me, no matter, I feel like I may not have been the greatest player, but I feel like I always played as hard as I could, and people I think would agree on that. And, I don't see the point of doing something if you're not going to give 110%. And if we're going to go into a gym and you don't want to give 110%, I'm probably not the guy for you, because
Mhm.
you know what? If you're going to go in there for an hour, you might as well give your best and try to get better. And
Mhm.
there's no point in doing that, because you're going to get hurt and you're going to go through the motions, and it's just not going to be right. So we go hard, but I expect these guys, if they work, I also hold up my end. Like, if you do this, this is what's going to happen. It's not me doing it. This is for you. So if you come in and give half speed and I tell you you're going to get these results, you're not going to get the results. So it's very important that they work hard and buy in. And if they do, they usually enjoy it, and they usually enjoy the process.
Now, can you tell the viewers a little bit about exactly what things you do work on? Do you work on things that maybe if it's a basketball player, things that might enhance their basketball game, or do you just go over overall strength, conditioning, etc.?
It depends on the age, right? But one thing most people need is what's called GPP, general physical preparation, right? If I brought in a bunch of kids that didn't lift weights, I don't care if they're 18, 14, 12, and 10. If they've never conditioned certain muscles, they're not going to have much function in those muscles other than they've developed playing their sport. And one of the things that's happened over the years, AAU has kind of taken away the playground, and it's kind of made kids sport specific, in my opinion, a little too early. So
Uh-huh.
some of the stuff we did as kids, whether it's playing in the neighborhood, playing different sports, for me going to Buttonwood and playing against the older guys, different parks, Pine Hill, playing in the Montes League, the front league, you got to get stronger going against those guys. And it might not be weight room strength, but you got to develop man strength. And I feel like a lot of these kids don't have that opportunity, so they all have very similar strengths and weaknesses. One of the biggest things I believe in, though, is we do a lot of basic stuff, and it's developing the posterior chain, or the backside of the body. The glutes are the biggest muscles, the back, and then of course the core. So, and then the conditioning, I really try to make sure my guys are at a all-time high with conditioning. If they come in during a season, I won't kill them. I expect them to be in shape. But like when Joe Son was getting ready for Arizona State, he worked very, very, very hard on conditioning. Drew Herron, who's like my family, I have a treadmill at my gym that's self-propelled, Millennium Fitness in Lakeville, and it's grueling. Jacob's ladder, things that are going to develop not just conditioning but mental toughness too, because I think it's super important that these guys are mentally tough if they want to play the game at the highest level they can.
Now, Nick, also If you have a, do they come to you or do you search for them? If you see someone you know has potential, will you go out and search for them or do you have them come see you?
I think at first I kind of had to seek guys out. Now that I've been doing it for a little while and I have relationships with coaches and a lot of basketball trainers, I do get lucky and get kids that will call me from their coaches. But if I see a kid on Instagram and I think a kid has potential and could use the weight room, I'll absolutely give them a call or try to reach out to them through a coach and say, hey, just letting you know, I'm not too far from this kid. If he wants to come down and work out, I'd love to have him. I'd love to be able to help him and help him get a little bit stronger this summer when he's got some off time. Because most of the kids I work with are prep school kids. I don't have too many public school kids, unfortunately, anymore. So the prep school kids are usually home during breaks, but mostly in the summertime.
What is it that you okay, I'm gonna keep it real. I'm a high school sophomore and I want to improve my game. And I get in touch with you. What's the protocol? What's the procedure after that?
To put an assessment on the person and then kind of see where their weaknesses are. I usually have an idea of what they're going to be. If they match my thoughts, I put them in a early phase of helping them develop the patterns they need for strength and conditioning. Like whenever I'm not going to put a young kid that's never lifted before under a barbell and make him start squatting. I'm going to start teaching them the patterns they're going to need. They're going to do a lot of body weight stuff, push-ups, pull-ups, things like that so I can see where they're at. And then we're going to start developing general strength, and then after the first 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and as they get a little older and stronger, we'll start progressing them into the more sophisticated or complicated barbell movements, and then eventually progress them up to, you know, power cleans, dynamic jumps, and things of that nature that, I would never do with a young kid that's never lifted before. It's all a learning process. It's just like anything else. You can't shoot a three before you can make a layup or a free throw. Strength and
Damn
conditioning is
right.
the same way.
Now, Nick, too, also, we have a lot of parents that view on my show. Um, and they said, if they asked you, Nick, I got a young daughter or a young son, um, what's the minimum age that you would accept someone to go through your regimen?
I mean, I started with Drew Hearn when he was 9, and I think, and listen, Drew comes from an unbelievable line of athletes, Michael and Chris. People know how good they were, but that kid works as hard as any kid I've ever trained, and I always tell people he's a Bentley. I just got to shine up the rims once in a while, but that being said, that kid started with me at 9 years old. And I remember one day he came to his dad's work where I work, and it was probably mid July. It's 107 degrees out, and he's got a parachute with him, Mikey, and he wants to run sprints with the parachute on in the 107-degree weather. And he was probably like 12 at the time, and I was like, "Hey, it's a little warm out, like, And he was like, "No, I don't care. I want to run." And he stayed out there for a half hour and ran in that heat. So I think the younger you start them, as long as they're physically capable of the things you give them, I don't think there's any problems with it. I think it's great for all the young kids to start practicing that stuff early. Like physical exercise never hurt anyone. My son goes to the gym with me. He's 5 and he'll run on the treadmill once in a while and not crazy. Push a sled.
Right.
I'll try to tell him to do some push ups and squats. I think exercise can help everybody. I have a 70-year-old woman I work with who rode a bike for the first year, and now she does like box jumps and deadlifts 130. She deadlifts her body weight for 3 to 4 reps. So
Now, Nick, who were your who inspired you when you was growing up?
obviously, Coach Roderick's, and the great athletes at New Bedford High, like the athletes at New Bedford High. I had some college athletes I loved growing up. Like I loved the Duke teams with Christian Laettner, Grant Hill, and Bobby Hurley. I loved Jerry Rice. I loved Magic Johnson. I love Larry Bird. But I was lucky, right? In the late '80s and early '90s, Before I came into high school, New Bedford High had the best athletes they've ever had. The Foo-Foos, the Marcus Wills, the Jeffrey Clarks, the TJ Goodirons, the Fleas, the JoJos, the Shariks, the Rudies. I get to see all those guys play basketball, football, baseball, and that was for me like, wow, these guys are unbelievable. I was in awe with them, how good they were. And still to this day, I think about it. I talk about that all the time to people, like growing up and being in awe of these guys. So, I knew I'd have to work hard if I even want to make a team. So I think the guys in New Bedford inspired me and my uncle the most out of anybody.
What do you think? How can I put this? How do you think you can inspire the youth? Because I like my guests to make an impact, and obviously you've made an impact. But what advice could you give? Because, like I said, a lot of you do watch this show. What advice could you give the youth that might be beneficial to them?
I think one of the things every kid should know, like, I think we put a lot of limitations on kids depending on where they're at in life, right? Like, if you ask my high school teachers about me, I probably wasn't the most pleasant kid in the classroom, maybe even in seventh and eighth grade,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't think anything is a bad kid, Mikey, right? I think that every kid deserves an opportunity. And I think it's very important to inspire and motivate these kids to chase their dreams. Now, with chasing dreams requires a lot of hard work and dedication. So I just think it's teaching them like basic things, how to work hard. Like, listen, if you want to be a musician, like you're not going to become a rap star at 16 or 15 probably, but this is what you can do if you want to be a rap star. You're not going to become a doctor at 17, but if you really want to be a doctor, like these are the college courses you have to take. These are the grades you're going to need in high school. And then I just think like we have so many people that have come from our city that have done great things. I think bringing those people around the kids that they don't see every day, it's and letting them see like the people that have done well and, you know, what road they took, how hard did they work? What was it like for them? How did they make it out? And I think it's really important for these kids to be aware of this stuff. I do think that we have some people in the New Bedford school system right now doing a great job, getting these kids around those type of people, and I think that like Jeff Longo and Ryan Saucier are two good friends of mine, and I think they're doing a great job making kids aware. You got Brian and Sharik at the factory putting a ton of kids um, in that building every single day, and I think the more they need it, the more they see that stuff, the more likely that is to inspire them and help them make it to where they want to go. And then, you have guys that have done well, like Aaron Christian. He's out in California and he's made it to be a big musician and work with musicians. And he brought a kid down to the high school a few years ago. And I think things like that. Wilson played overseas basketball. Marcus Heltman
Mm-hmm.
played overseas. The
Mm-hmm.
more you can open these kids' eyes up to it, I think the better it is, man. And I think it's great to always have these kids to feel like they have someone they can talk to or have an outlet with that they trust and they can kind of just kick it with and pick their brain to see what steps they had to go through to make it.
And what I think is very important as well is how we relate to the kids as far as you obviously know about the drug scene and the
Sure.
fentanyl and I wonder I wonder if you could please let the viewers know what you would do in a situation, or do you perhaps give some advice to the youth or parents who will be watching this? Like I said, I want my guests to make an impact. So whatever you could, anything you could say or give your advice on to the parents who are watching this. And this is seen all over. This is not just New Bedford. This is all over. So you know what I mean?
I think the thing I've learned is like, I know when I did drugs, I know where I was in life and I think everyone's different depending on where they're at. But,
Okay.
Chris always says like you want to do it out of love and compassion. Like if I knew
No,
a
excuse me.
kid,
I gotta interrupt you. I gotta interrupt you 1 second. You say Chris. The viewers may not know who Chris
Chris
is.
Herron,
Can you inform who Chris is?
Chris Herron,
Okay.
I work for Chris Herron, but Chris Chris has a great story and he does a phenomenal job. And he's been my mentor and taught me a lot of stuff. And, I think like if I'm talking to a kid that's struggling, the last thing I want to do is make them feel worse than they feel. You know, you want to sit next to them and give them a hug and be like, hey, it might be tough now, but it's going to be okay. And if you look in the city, there's a ton of people that have overcome addiction, and there's resources everywhere. Now, sometimes it takes a little while to find them, but you know, just having an open, honest conversation with your kids and not screaming and yelling. I never responded well to any of that. My mom always, my mom always guided me with love, and it took me a little while to get it. And I was doing heroin, and I've done a lot of drugs, and I've drank a lot, and alcoholism and drug addiction crippled me for years, and that's no way to live. And I think just empathy, love, compassion, and kindness, I think, are always the best way to reach people.
Wow, that's deep. That is deep. Whew. Hmm. Nick, I'm gonna try to change the topic for a little bit. Now you've trained so many outstanding athletes. Can you name a few, and how did that develop, and what transpired? Where are they now?
Yeah.
Things of that nature.
Tyler Kolek, he's with the New York Knicks. And when I was coaching at UMass Dartmouth, I met Tyler's dad. Tyler's dad is one of probably the best player that ever played there. No offense to all my other guys. I love you all, but if we're keeping it real, Tyler's dad was a killer. And I knew Tyler when he was 6. And, I was working out guys in the area, Chris Herron, Noah, and I was working out one of Tyler's coaches, CJ Ward, and obviously he played for Dwayne. And Tyler started to come to me, and we just kept working, and we just kept working, and we developed a great, great relationship. And this year seeing that kid pick 34th, it's unbelievable. Still unbelievable. I get to go see him play. He got called down for a game for the Westchester Knicks,
Uh-huh.
and he called me and said, "Hey, Or I called him and I'm playing down. It's like 2.5, 3 hours." And he told me because one of the guys on the Bucks G League team, the Wisconsin Herd, is a kid named Day Merck, who his NBA manager, a guy by the name of Ryan Sweeney, set me up with, and they trained together with me, and I got to see them cover each other in a G League game a couple weeks ago, and that to me, and I
Wow.
brought my son, and I don't know if people
Wow.
realize, like, if you're to get a Division 1 men's basketball scholarship, it's pretty much a 1% chance. To get drafted into the NBA is less than a 1% chance. So you're the 1% of the 1%. So to see these two guys playing in the G League covering each other, that I've worked with, developed
Wow.
relationships with, that I'm close with, they both called
Yeah.
me and asked me to come to the game and to share it with my son is was
Wow.
so so amazing for me.
That's outstanding. Who are some of the other athletes that you have trained?
My man Drew Herron, that's
Oh, yeah, yeah,
he's
yeah.
gonna be. That kid he works just as hard as those guys. And he's only 16. I got to go to a St. Andrews last year with him after we lifted, me, him, and Tyler, and he got to do some drills with Ty, and he was competing and pushing himself. That kid. Not many. The thing about Drew is not only does he work so hard, my son idolizes him. And my son looks up to him, and it's been such an amazing experience. Him and his brother
Wow.
Christopher are like my family. And they're such great, great kids. And Joson, I think people need to take a look at some of these guys and see what they do. Joson worked out with me at Christmas Eve at 5:15 a.m. to get a workout in before he went back home.
Now, what's his name? Joe San who?
Joson Sanoon, the kid at Arizona State, he's
Okay.
projected to be he's projected to be a first round pick as a freshman.
Wow.
Brian Rudolph's done a lot of work with him. My good friend CJ Ward is a big part of his journey. And CJ coaches at BABC and coached with Dwayne at St. George's. And, you know, that kid was playing at the MGM in Springfield versus UMass Amherst. Came home, was at Durfee High School the next day at 9 a.m. to give all the kids sneakers that he took care of. This is an 18, 19-year-old kid doing that. People people need to see that because he's just an amazing kid. Then I'm going to say three more. I got my two guys at St. Bonaventures, DeSante Bowen and Dwayne Thompson, both local Boston kids. Dwayne played for Putnam Science. DeSante played for Brewster Academy. They're both doing great at St. Bonaventures right now. Dwayne's a freshman, Sante's a junior. And, they get to work with Wojnowski. I got to meet him
Ooh.
through them. And, that's a huge, huge feather in the cap for both those kids. Both those kids are with me in the gym all summer, and they work their butts off. Um, and then I'm going to mention my man Jordan Minor. Jordan Minor was another local kid. He's was at Merrimack, went to Virginia, and now he's in the rotation in the G League for the Long Island Nets.
Wow.
And he's a kid that lived with me in the summer, not at my house, but like in the gym and worked his butt off. And, I get to watch him too. And it's pretty cool for me to see these guys that I have great relationships with working hard. And I got kid Gus Yalden at Seton Hall. I'm super, super close with. He's only a sophomore. I got to take my son to see him play, and he stayed at my house before, so it's pretty dope. I got some football players too, but I don't know if they wouldn't be as known as well as the basketball players name wise.
Now, obviously, that has given you a great deal of credibility. And so, if people who are watching this show, which I hope there's a lot, how can they get in touch with you if they want, if they want to take their son or daughter, or maybe one of the youths are watching this? I want to train with that guy. How do they
My
get in touch with you?
my Instagram page is the best way, Coach Nick Performance, and then they can just send me a direct message. That's usually what people will reach out to me the most. I think I'm almost positive my cell phone number's on there too, so they can just shoot me a text, and just hit me up. You'd be surprised though, Mikey. Like, not many kids don't work out like that. I'm telling you. I don't. I'm a New Bedford guy, and my gym's in Lakeville, and I don't have one kid from New Bedford that works out with me, and that's just the truth,
Uh, wow.
and so it's pretty wild.
Now, before we, because I know you're short for time, so I'm here to give you your flowers. So, Nick, for the short time we have remaining, I want to give you the floor. I want you to talk about anything you want to talk about. This is my thank you to you and for what you do and what you've done, what you have accomplished, and I just want to give you the floor and go for it, my brother.
Thanks. I just think that life's been a roller coaster for me the last 11 and a half years. Recovery, getting into AA has been absolutely huge for me. The connections I've made, the people that have come in my life, the job I have, I always say is the best place on earth, Heron Wellness in Seekonk. And for me, it all starts with God. I believe God is the key proponent in my life, and he's blessed me and put all these things in my life. And if I don't have God, I have nothing. And I try to communicate that with all my athletes, how important that is. So, and then just my mom. My mom did more for me than any human being. She's been dead for 7 years now, 6 years. And, I think about her every day. And some of the friends I've lost along the way, New Bedford can be a tough city. It can be a tough city. But if you stay
Yeah,
through it and
definitely.
you weather the storm, I think you learn things in New Bedford you can't learn anywhere else.
I definitely agree with you. Again, before we got to go, is there anybody you want to give a shout out to? Is there anything that maybe I didn't ask that you wanted to
No, I
reflect on,
appreciate it,
or is there
Mikey.
anything that?
Just my family and just all the athletes that have worked with me, all the kids, and most importantly the kids in New Bedford that when I didn't have a name or a reputation, that gave me a chance, an opportunity, and stuck with me and didn't give up on me when I was a heroin addict at my lowest point. They always showed me love, and that stuff you don't forget. And that's why, to me, the relationship I have in the city of New Bedford will always be a special place for me.
Well, Nick, again, I want to thank you for coming on my show. You have an open invitation. You have any athletes that you want to have them come on and promote them? You're welcome. You got an open door. You can come anytime you want. Anything you want, I'm there for you, my brother. Again,
Thanks,
I
Mike.
want to thank you for coming on my show, folks. Again, I want to thank Nick Correa, a good friend of mine who is doing some fantastic things with some of the youth and training, and he's had some NBA ball players like Tyler Kolek right now, who's doing pretty damn good, and his other people that he's training as well. And one more time, Nick, if people want to get in touch with you, how do they get in touch with you?
Coach Nick Performance on Instagram. It's the best way. Everything's there for them to get in touch with me.
Well, again, Nick, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mikey.
Take care. God bless. You
God
got
bless.
it. Thank you so much. Folks, that was my man, Nick Correa, a good friend of mine, and he's been through some trials and tribulations and has overcome them. And I just wanted to be able to give him his flowers because he sure has deserved it in every way, shape, and form. And he's giving back, paying it forward. And I wanted to stress, if you do decide to go and train with him, be prepared, be ready, because he gives out 150%, and he expects you guys or girls to give the same as well. And it's been a pleasure having him on my show. He's a busy man. That's why I only had about a half hour to be on my show. But as you all heard, I gave him an open invitation to come on. And we got another big show coming up at 6 o'clock with Wilson Alex, professional fighter. And we're going to talk about him and his grind and his journey as well. And then next week, I'm going to call it Fitness Friday with the Conn Man. We have some outstanding guests. We're going to get on the fitness tip as well. You know what I mean? Of course, I got some basketball coming along the way as well, of course. But I wanted to kind of, because I have the platform to be able to, talk about fitness and wellness and, getting our lives back together, getting healthy. And, I think it's a perfect platform to do that, as well as talking about the NBA, which I can do that anytime anyway. But anyway, I think I've said enough for show number one. So folks, tune in at 6 o'clock. We have another guest. We have another outstanding guest. And I want to thank you guys for tuning into my show. Spread the word. Share the likes, whatever you can do, because I have some great things coming up in the future as well. And it's a lot of work, but it's something I love doing. And the network has given me the platform. I'm going to give a big shout out to, of course, my promoter, producer, Keith Williams, Jake Silver, and Kuma Kane, because without them, I would not be able to do what I do right now. So for now, I'm going to say farewell. See you all at 6 p.m. Thank you for tuning in to Sports Corner with the Conn Man. Check it out. Have a good night. Peace. God bless.